Basics. All right, there's three things you have to know in music to really understand music theory. Notes. Now, if you swap the T and the N in notes, you get tones. Okay? A tone is, we usually think of notes as something that's on the piano. They're fixed pitch. Okay? A tone would be something like on the violin, where there's notes on the violin, but you can bend the pitch, right? So you can do a... Whoa. So you can do that as well. So these are notes, D, E, but you can bend the E. So we call it a tone. All right, so write down everything that I'm putting on the board here. So a note is a single tone, just one tone. You're not playing two at a time like this. You're just playing one. A note. So the definition of a note is a single tone on an instrument, or you can sing it. Ah. Okay, that's a note. Then you have, when you play two notes together, it's called an interval. Right? Inter meaning in between, and vol for value, in between values. Interval. That's two notes sounded or played at the same time. Or sung. Two notes sounded simultaneously, and the word simultaneously means at the same time. Two notes sounded simultaneously. Okay? So it sounds like this. So I have a D and an F sharp, or maybe this, or maybe this, or maybe this. It can be two Ds. Or I could play two notes on two different instruments at the same time. I could play middle C on one piano and I could sing it. Right? That's an interval. It would be called a unison if it's the same note. Then we have chords. We have a chord. And a chord is made up of at least two intervals. It's three or more notes played simultaneously. Okay? Simultaneously means at the same time. Okay? Make sure you write all this down. So a note is a single tone. Single tone. An interval is two tones at the same time. And a chord is three notes played at the same time, or more. Okay? There's all sorts of chords. Thousands of them. That's how we get our musical character, through the chords and through the intervals. Got it all? You have to look on your brothers. So we have notes, intervals, and chords. All right, now let's look at notes. Notes. Okay, so the musical alphabet consists of A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. The musical alphabet. Now the regular alphabet goes from A to Z. The musical alphabet goes A to G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And that's it. And after G, we go back to A. Yeah, there's no H. We just go back to A. So after G is A, and before A was G. G, F, E, D, C, B, A. You want to learn how to say that. Okay, so that's the musical alphabet. So it's like time. So with time, we have, if we look at time, we have 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. There's no 13 o'clock. Okay? In the military, if somebody says 1300 hours, what they mean is 1 p.m. They mean 1. 13 equals 1. Okay? Music is the same way. Here's music. We have the musical alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. There's no H. All right? H equals A. You got all this? Yeah, go ahead and write everything. You know, when I put it up on the board, you're like, oh yeah, of course. And then the next day you're like, what did we do? I forgot about that. Yeah, so let's look at how the staff is constructed. It's constructed from 11 lines. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 11 lines in the staff. Now in your book, you'll have to connect this bar line. Let me draw the bar line in blue. Actually, I like to use blue for the bar line. Okay, and then we're going to take that middle line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the sixth line, We're going to put a C right there. That's going to be C. Now, 11 lines is just too difficult to read, so we're going to erase the C. All right? It's still there. We just can't see it. We're going to put a treble clef on the top staff, making it a treble staff. We're going to put a bass clef on the bottom staff, making it a bass staff. And then we're going to go up. And these are notes. We're looking at notes now. Not intervals, not chords, notes. C, D, E, F, G, A, and so on. C, B, A, G, F, and so on. Okay? So that's how we get the notes. That's what that looks like. That's what that sounds like. Yes, question? I did. You practice. We good? In music, we have scales, which are made up of notes. So let's define a scale. All right. There's a specific type of scale called a diatonic scale. Don't worry about what diatonic means. Actually, I'm about to tell you. A scale is a bunch of notes in succession, one after the other, etc., etc., etc. So let's define a scale. A diatonic means 7 notes in succession. 7 notes in succession. And succession means one after the other. The word success means the next one. So if you're successful in life, it means you did what you were supposed to and you got to the next level. Okay? Louis XV succeeded Louis XIV. He was the next one. Success just means the next one. So we talk about the ladder of success. You climb the ladders of success. 7 notes in succession. So let's take a look at 7 notes in succession. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But nobody just wants to hear that. They want to hear the 8th note. Okay. But it's not 8 notes in succession. I mean, it is, but the top note was the same as the bottom note. I'll draw it. Okay. 5 ledger lines is a staff. We'll put a bar line on the left side of the staff and a bar line on the right part of the staff. We'll put a treble clef that tells us where G is. We'll scroll around the G, the second line from the bottom. And then let's go ahead and put in the notes. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's our scale. And that's called the C scale. Now everything in music has two names. So we can call it the C scale and we can call it the key of C. The C scale. It's the C scale. That's what it looks like on the staff, and this is what it sounds like. Now we use scale degrees, which are just numbers. Okay? So we're going to count the scale degrees, which is going to be where's my other blue? 1. Now in chemistry, if you have a little thermometer over here, right, you have degree 1, degree 2. Use this little circle up to 100. It's a tiny little circle here, a superscript, we call it. That's how you represent degree. In music, we also have degrees, but we don't use the circle. We use that for something else. We use this little hat. And that means scale degree 1. This little hat right there above the 1. So this is scale degree 1, scale degree 2, scale degree 3, scale degree 4, scale degree 5, scale degree 6, scale degree 7, scale degree 8. But just like 1300 hours, there is no 8. 8 equals 1. Okay? And so in practicality, in practicum, in the real world, a scale would have 8 degrees. In theory, C equals C. Okay? And actually the frequency of one C would be half the frequency of the other C, if we're talking about physics, exactly half. So you can have an A 440, an A 880, or an A 220, okay, or A 110, 55, etc. We use A because it's an exact, at least with our temperament these days, our scalar temperature. Scale degree 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But there is no 8. This is just 1. But nobody wants to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That way you can hear it in your mind. 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You don't want to think of 7, 1. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. So we say 7, 8, but it's really 7, 1. You can say it either way. We good? So that's a diatonic scale. So if I ask you what's a diatonic scale, you're going to say 7 notes in succession from one note to its octave. Now, from C to C is called an octave, okay? From here all the way up to there is an octave. Octave. An octave is 8 notes above the other note in the scale. 8 diatonic notes. There's another way to talk about scales, and that's chromatic. We're not going to look at chromatic right now, but chromatic is when you go through all the notes. That's a 12-note scale, chromatic scale. A diatonic scale is 7 notes. So from C to C is an octave. From C to C is an octave. An octave is the word that you'll probably hear the most during your musical career? Very important. Octave. An oct means 8. So that's why we call it an octave. Right? So oct means 8. There we have an octopus and a stop sign. Oct means 8. So from C to C is an octave. From E flat to E flat is an octave. From this D is 2 octaves. Very important word. Octave is 8 notes up. On the diatonic scale. It's the same note, or 12 notes up on the chromatic scale. So, what's a scale? 7 notes in succession. A diatonic scale is 7 notes in succession. What's an octave? 8 notes up. The same note. That's right. Very good. Now what are we doing? Octave. So let's look at the C scale, or the key of C. There's 5 ledger lines. It's called a staff because those lines work for you. They're your staff. These are 2 bar lines or measure lines. Everything in music has 2 words to describe it. We can call it a bar line or a measure line. This is a treble clef or a G clef. Everything in music has 2 phrases or words to describe it. That tells us that's where G is. Now we're going to go C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay. That's our C scale. Scale degree 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Put the little hat. That's the C scale. Now we have the, let's do another scale here. We're going to draw 5 ledger lines, and 5 ledger lines is called a what? What are 5 ledger lines called? These lines work for you. They are your, people who work for you are your staff. That's what we call the people who work for you. Okay, we're going to draw 2 bar lines or measure lines. We separate the music into bars or measures. We're going to draw a treble clef or a G clef. Now we're going to draw another scale. We're going to start on G. G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay? Oh, something didn't quite sound right. G, A, B, C, D, E, F. Uh-oh. We have to raise the F to an F sharp. The F sharp is the 7th scale degree, so we have to write sharp. We'll write it in right there. Sharp. Okay? We have scale degree 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we had to put a sharp, we had to put a black key as the 7th scale degree. Now each of these scale degrees has a name. You good? Can I erase this? I'll erase the C scale. How about that? So let's look at the names of the scale degrees. We can use them. There's a couple of them that we use a lot, like 1, 5, 7, and 8. Okay, here's 5 ledger lines. 5 ledger lines is called a what? A staff. S-T-A-F-F. And the plural of staff is staves with a V-E-S, or staves. Staves or staves. Plural means more than one. I'm going to draw 2 bar lines. Don't really need them, but we'll draw them. Why not? And we're going to draw our treble clef, or we can call it a G clef. Okay, it's going to scroll around the G right there. And then we're going to draw our notes. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. The name of the first scale degree is tonic. T-O-N-I-C. Tonic. The name of the second scale degree is supertonic, because super means above. That's why Superman flies above the people. If you're a super child in school, you're above everybody else in the class. We eat super or supper at the high hour above the other hours of the day. Supertonic. That's scale degree 2. Supertonic. Tonic is the adjective form of the word tone. And the tone, this scale, starts and ends on C. That's the tone. This scale starts and ends on G. So the tonal note, the tone is G. So we say tonic. It's the noun form. I'm sorry, not the adjective form, the noun form. It's just tone, basically. It's another way of saying tonal or tone. Tonic, tonic. Supertonic. Okay. Scale degree 5 is called dominant. Very important. Dominant. Scale degree 5. Okay. Dom from domain. Because 5, if we build a chord off the 5, scale degree 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that takes us home. How many symphonies end like this? There's a magnetic pull toward 1 from 5. So it's a very dominant sound. So we call it the dominant. And it tells us the domain we're in, which is C, the tonic. That's what gives us the context for the tonic when you hear it. Okay? Dominant. So 4, just like the word super means above, what means below? We have a superscript and we have a sub. Right, like a submarine is below the surface. If you're subpar in class, it means you're below the other children, right? A substitute is below the original. So sub means below. So 4 is called the subdominant. Four is called subdominant. And then when you turn on the stove, you have the high heat, you have the low heat, and then what's in the middle? Starts with an M. Medium, right? Medium. So 3 is between the super and the sub. So it's mediant. We call this the mediant. The name of the scale degree is mediant. M-E-D means in the middle. Medium. Right? We used to call these medicine doctors mediums back in the old days because they kept you in the middle. They didn't have to bury you and you weren't going to heaven. So you were staying in the middle on the planet. So they were mediums where they could speak to the people in the middle. M-E-D. Medium. Mediant. Six is called a submediant. I don't know why, it just is. Probably couldn't think of a good name for it. Seven is really important. 8 is called octave. The word you're going to hear most throughout your entire musical career is octave. before the octave is called leading tone. And that's the word you're going to hear almost as much as octave, if not more. Leading tone. This is one of the most important terms in music. The 7th scale degree is called the leading tone. It's the tone that leads to the key you're in. Sorry. 7. Okay, it leads to the key of C if you're in the key of C. So it's the leading tone. So scale degree 1 is called the tonic. Scale degree 2 is called the supertonic. Scale degree 3 is called the mediant. Scale degree 4 is called the subdominant. Scale degree 5 is called the dominant. You're going to hear that word a lot, dominant. Scale degree 6 is called the submediant. Scale degree, we usually just call that the minor, or the relative minor. Scale degree 7 is called the leading tone. You're going to hear that word a lot. Very important, especially as string players. Leading tone is very important. You want to stay high on the leading tone. Scale degree 8 is called the octave or the tonic. But if you're relating it to the tonic from another tonic, it's called the octave. So those are your scale degrees in numbers and in name. Let's repair our staff here. Now the key of C has a key signature with no sharps and no flats. It's all the white keys on the piano. That's why. So if you're a string player, you don't really know why there's no sharps or flats until you look at a piano and you see, oh, they're all white keys. But the key of G has a sharp, okay? Has a F sharp. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Because it has a sharp on the piano, it's a sharp. Has nothing to do with strings, guitar, flute, any of that stuff. It's all because of the way the piano looks with the black keys and the white keys. So that's the key signature for the key of G right there. It's going to be 1 sharp. Now when you put that sharp there, it means all the Fs throughout the piece are going to be sharped. And all the Fs up and down are going to be sharped as well. So this F will also be sharped all the way across. All of them. C, B, A, G, F. This F will also be sharped. All of them up and down the spectrum, up and down the vertical spectrum, and across the horizontal spectrum will all be sharped until you see a natural symbol. And then just for that measure, it'll be natural. And then the next measure, it'll be sharped again. We don't even have to write a sharp. But we're not going to write the sharps in the key signature on all of the lines and spaces where there's an F. We're just going to write 1. We're just going to write it at the top for the treble clef. Okay, and if you want to see what it looks like for the bass clef, we'll draw 5 ledger lines. 5 ledger lines is called a what? Staff. And this blue line is called what? A bar line or a measure line. That's right. And this fancy symbol is called a what? F clef. That's right. Or a bass clef. Bass means low, so it's all the low notes. And clef is the French word for key. All the low notes. F key would be, so you can think of it as the low keys or the F key. That's the F key right there. The bass clef has the two dots around the F key. Okay, so that's the F right there. So we're going to sharp that, and that's the key signature for the key of G. We're going to sharp the leading tone. We're not going to sharp G, we're going to sharp the leading tone, which is F, to make it F sharp. F sharp is the leading tone. So let's write key signature. The next key signature is going to have another sharp. It's going to have C sharp. We'll talk about why some other time. That's C sharp. So here's the key of G. If we add C sharp, now we're in the key of D. D, E, F sharp. We keep the F sharp from the previous key. G, A, B, C sharp, D. Now we have the key of D. So we're going to add a sharp. We're going to add the C sharp. We're always going to add the leading tone to the next key. So the C sharp will be the leading tone, the 7th scale degree, for the key of D. So this is the key signature for the key of D. Now this doesn't really help you that much. We're going to get into explaining exactly why we're adding the sharps we are another time. And that's going to all make sense. It's complicated, but it will make sense. So this would be the key of D right here. D, E, F sharp. I don't need to sharp it outside here because it's already sharped up here. G, A, B, C sharp. Make sure you say sharp. I don't need to add a sharp right here because it's already right here at the key signature. And then the octave, D. Okay, so we have the tonic, the supertonic, the mediant, the subdominant, the dominant, the submediant, the leading tone, and the octave. Scale degree 1, scale degree 2, scale degree 3, scale degree 4, scale degree 5, scale degree 6, scale degree 7, and scale degree 8 or 1 really. So you'll notice scale degree 1 can change. That's different from math. In math we have something called variables like A, B, and C, and they can change. You can say A equals 5, right? Then you can do A plus B equals C. Or you can say, you know what, it used to equal 5, but now A equals 6. That's math. The letters are the variables, and the numbers are constant. In music is the opposite. The letters are constant. That's always going to be A. You can't change it. But the numbers will be variable. It's the opposite of math. So we can say 1 equals A. And what we're talking about is the scale degree 1. So now I have an A scale. Or we can say 1 equals C. Okay? So the numbers now are variable and the letters are constant. So now 1 equals C, 1 equals G. Okay? 3 equals D sharp. So it's the opposite. In music, the numbers are variables and the letters are constant because they're frequencies, right? You can't change the frequency of A or C. In math, the letters are variable and the numbers are constant. 5 is always going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's an introduction to notes. We haven't gone over intervals, but we need to know the notes in order to know the intervals, and we need to know the intervals in order to know the chords, and we need to know the chords in order to make some really fancy music. That wasn't what I meant to do. Like that. Okay, chords. Any questions about any of this? How many years? It will take you 4 years of lessons in my studio to become an accomplished piano player, an accomplished pianist. Another 2 years, 6 years, to become a proficient pianist in my studio, and 9 years to become a virtuoso pianist.